Hi everyone, this is Chen Ben Asher, your board certified nutritionist. And today's topic I would like to cover the big question, gluten-free, do you have gluten-free emergency action in hand on hand? And what does it mean preparing ourselves to the next winter weeks to come? And unfortunately, hurricanes, tornado, fire, earthquakes are all natural disasters that can happen and are happening. I personally experienced the fires in California 2 or 3 years ago, two times. Actually, it was really unpleasant event and experience. It was pretty hard and tough knowing that the fire is coming closer to your living, and the quality of the air was really horrific and it was literally hard to breathe. And this is the third year in a row, if not the fourth year in a row, that the fires in California is going crazy. So if we would not take any changes today, what will happen next summer or next year? And at the same time, moving to Austin, I just experienced last year the winter storm, which was really different experience, almost surreal. And I asked myself, why did I got into these two experiences, except to the fact that the environment is definitely changing. And if I have to choose between winter storm or fire, I would prefer to go back on winter storm. Although we were experiencing 7 days straight for no power, no water, no food. It was really bizarre experience that kind of like require some preparation, and especially us as a gluten-free people dealing with specific foods and some challenges with food. We need to prepare ourselves not to fall off the wagon while we are in a disaster like that. And a week without food or power, or a week with no transportation, and a week without phone or devices that you can communicate with the rest of the world requires some changes. And I can tell you that we were so lucky that we have an oven that is operated by the gas, and all our neighbors around use electrolyte oven, and literally we became to be the kitchen for the neighborhood. And I was like boiling water and transferring water to people to heat the food, especially when it's really cold, or even just have a glass of water or a cup of tea. And when the temperature falls down, you want to have that heat. So looking forward into the winter that comes ahead of us, we definitely want to eliminate the uncertainty and the unexpected outcomes that are involved with some kind of Mother Nature disaster. And we need to prepare ourselves, that's for sure. And the big question here, are you prepared? Do you have any plan? And especially, do you have any preparation, or have you prepared yourself on a gluten-free diet? Because a gluten-free, when we are choosing to be on a gluten-free diet, there is a background behind it. We are choosing to be on a gluten-free because of one reason. Gluten makes us sick. So if you are not prepared well, you will get, on top of the stress of the disaster itself, you'll get more sick, and you want to avoid that if possible. And obviously, on a gluten-free diet, one of the challenges is that the calories are not coming from the carbs necessarily, or a grain, which is easier to supply the energy and the calories, so you can manage the stress and the need, and especially in extreme weather where we need higher amount of calories to survive it. We need to make sure that we have all that in hands and prepared. And even if you are moving out of your house to a shelter, what do they will provide you with? And most likely it will be, no doubt about that, non-gluten. And basically it will be gluten, not non-gluten. And so we need to prepare ourselves. And this is the topic of today, looking forward. And just today, 100 people lost their life because of a disaster in Kansas. So we cannot ignore that. It's here. Mother Nature is talking to us, and we need to take a lot of actions for sure. But the next storm that might hit you, you want to be prepared and make sure that you know what you're doing. So definitely, when we are talking about gluten-free a diet, we want to keep in mind several things. Number one, we know from studies that all relief workers will reach disaster areas in a timeline of 75 hours, which is about 3 days, sometimes longer, but that's the minimum. And when you are preparing your kit or emergency kit, you want to prepare a kit that will supply energy and all the needs for at least 3 days. With my experience last year, that we didn't have power and water for 7 days, I would say, go more than 72 to 75 hours, go more, because it wasn't pleasant. On the fourth day, it wasn't fun anymore. And on the fourth day, that was the time when we ran low on food, and we had to kind of like be more cautious about the resources that we had, and we didn't know at that point in time how long we are going to stay in this position with no power and no food and no water. So this is kind of like, with my personal experience last year, I would say you want to make sure that you are preparing to more than 75 hours, which is 3 days. Another thing that we want to keep in mind overall, kind of like in general message, is make the packages or the stock for the family members that are with you. So if you're by yourself, you prepare for one person. But if you are a parent with a kid or an adult that more people are relying on in your household, you want to make sure that everyone have the same content and the same amount of tools, so everyone will be able to cross this challenge safely regardless to the fact if they are gluten-free or not. And if we are gluten-free, most likely there is another member in the family that is gluten sensitive as well. And either you know that or not, but if you do know that, you want to address that as well. Because again, people would have to evacuate themselves, on the fire, and cities were burned and houses were shut down, and roofs were collapsed last year, and you had to evacuate yourself. But when you do, where do you supply the need? And that's something that you want to have a backpack that, is ready to go. The 6 basic groups of disaster supply you should have in your aisle is divided into 6 categories, and we will go one by one to make sure that you know what to do, and use that as a checklist for yourself so you can get some kind of like baseline. And of course, there is so much more information outdoor there, but be aware that preparation is one of your best method for surviving in such an event. So the first thing that I would like to talk is about water. So we're talking about water for, drinking water and cooking water. And one of the things that I can experience, and share with you was that the pipe were burst and the house was full and flooded with water. And we had to work hard to, dry the house because that was the only thing to do. And we had to shut down the main pipe. And so not just that the pipe has been burst, but because no relief or no plumbers were available because the road were closed, we didn't have any water. So suddenly we found ourselves with no drinking water and no cooking water, which is a big deal, just for taking supplements or taking medications. You just don't have it. So that was like really surprising for us. And so this year I already stocked bottles of water to have And I am advising anyone to kind of like prepare water in a big container to have. So if anything come up, you can at least have water to drink or water to, boil and make some soup if you can, of course. And also if you cannot, little bottles that are ready in your backpacks that you can move out if you need to evacuate yourself, and just make sure that you have that drinking. And under stress, no doubt, there is more thirst, and we need to supply that. One of the things that for me I can share is that if I'm stressed, I feel a very high thirst feeling, and I need to drink water. And if I don't drink water, that makes me more stressed, and it pulls me into a vicious cycle that is literally not necessarily in such circumstances. So prepare water, simple. Food will be the second thing that you want to address and you want to prepare. So obviously, if you are gluten-free, you want to prepare bags with gluten-free foods, and you want to make sure that you are choosing healthy options for you, because every one of us on gluten-free diet have other restrictions that we learn through the process of healing, understanding which other peptides can harm us and challenging us. So you want to make sure that you know what you are carrying with yourself, and it's so much better to make those choices when you're relaxed, when there is no stress around you, and when you are, like with full cautious and full awareness, know what you do and what you can choose. Now, I also advise to create like a stock of starchy vegetables that can easy to pick and fulfill us if you don't have grains enough. Pickle vegetables also can give you a lot of food. I can tell you last year, I had pickle cucumbers, and that was great food. Suddenly I found that cucumber pickles are so good and nourished, and I found out that it can keep me energetically to do what I needed while on these crazy times. Beans like pinto, lima, black are also good resource of protein. We don't necessarily need to eat just just animal-based protein. We definitely can have the plant-based protein to help us. And there are a lot of dehydrated food bag containers in a camping stores where you just have to add either boiled water or just regular water, and the water will warm up those pre-cooked beans, and that's a meal. And again, it's not fun to have it every day, 7 days in a row, but in emergency circumstances, if this is what will keep you safe, I would advise you to keep that in place and make sure that you have enough of it and for your family members, so you can cross that challenge with no extra health problems. Other thing that I like to suggest is having canned fish like tuna and sardines, stock it a little bit. Other canned fruits, like, fruits or other vegetables like corn or beets or artichoke. That, worst case scenario, if you need to evacuate, you put some on your backpack and you run with it, and at least you have those food options. Again, we have to remember it could be 75 hours situation, it could be longer, but it doesn't matter which one you are experiencing or how long you are experiencing it. The bottom line here, as long as you are experiencing it, you have this safety net food bag that do not challenge you health-wise by producing antibodies, creating tissue deterioration, and much more inflammation. Because in the end of the day, any disaster, any event takes the tolls out of us. It took me a couple of good weeks to recover from this event last year, not to say how much money we pour into fixing all those pipes. But in the end of the day, I think the way you cope with it, it's also relying on the food content that you are providing to yourself without any challenges. Frozen food is also can be helpful, and frozen and canned food can be last for 5 to 10 years. So don't worry about buying a little bit extra. You will use it either in your next disaster event. Hopefully, you'll never experience that. But if you do, you have it. And you know that the life shelf of those products is really long. So you can stock it for the winter, and every summer just eat it and restock the next year, new produce and new food options. So it will be easier on you. I personally prefer to have flour in the house, of course, gluten-free. I like to use amaranth very much. And so I had amaranth and I had water from a bottle that I took, and also from the neighbors that I always filled up with. And I made my pita bread. I always wanted to learn how to do pita bread, but I didn't know. And yes, I know how to do bread, but I didn't know how to do pita bread, which is basically flour that you cook on a pan. So I cannot say that it was professional, and I cannot say that it was like perfect. It wasn't, but I learned how to do it. And me and my husband, we were eating a lot of gluten-free pizza, pan, pita, whatever you want to call it. And that's what kept us, alive in these circumstances, because restaurants were not able to provide anything. DoorDash did not work. The closed and the roads were closed. So you want to be creative, and you want to have the supply in your house. And obviously, if you are needing to evacuate, this is not a solution. But if you stock like as we did last year, then you have a solution. And it wasn't a good solution. We still kept our gluten-free diet, and we were able to manage it very well in the end of the day. The other category that you want to make sure that you have is the first aid supply. And there is a lot of ready-to-go packages that you can find at any pharmacy around you, but you want to make sure that you have first aid, you want to have alcohol, you want to have antibiotics, and you want to make sure that you have some supplements in kind of like containers for these times. The one supplement that I will suggest for anyone under these circumstances, especially when we are dealing with extra stress, will be minerals, zinc, vitamin C. And also, I love to give people and just advise them the SL16, which basically it's a product that I'm selling, and it's a product that it's a liquid, and I can show you this here. It's a liquid supplement. And it's amazing because it's kind of like serve as a probiotic, if you may call, and if you kind of like need to reduce all the extra stress and the build up of the stress, these are very easy to swallow because it's liquid, and you just kind of like clearing everything. And under every stressful circumstances, this is a good method to use and support yourself so you're not falling off the wagon and crossing it. Now, one of the things that we know for sure, and studies are talking about that over again and again, if you run low on nutrients, specifically and especially when you are anxious and under stress, anxiety and panic attacks can be activated. And so there is a correlation between how much we're eating, how much available food we're eating, and how much or what type of food we're eating under these stressful times to create mental presentation. So keep in mind that if you are prone to anxious or panic attack, this is something that you want to build ahead of time, and you want to make sure not just that you have foods ready to go, that you have also supplements that can supply the need if you cannot eat that much because it's been extended beyond the 75 hours, and you preventing yourself from experiencing these mental expressions And again, if you're aware of it and you're educated yourself and you're preparing yourself, the chances are slim to experience that. So it's all about knowing what you need to do and preparing yourself and not wait to last minute to prepare that bag in the back so you can kind of like cross it much more safely, and cross it, in a distant way. Um, Another category that you want to kind of like pay attention is clothing, bedding, and sanitation supply. So yes, it was cold last year. The temperature dropped down, and guess what? Everything was snowing. The snow went that high, and my snowshoes that I used at Lake Tahoe when I was in California was someplace in my garage. And if you know where was it, I would probably would thank you for that. But I couldn't find it, and I couldn't find it in times where I needed it. So the point here is that yes, I had them, but they were in the garage, and I wasn't able to find that at that particular, emergency event. So I left myself with cold food. And again, if I knew ahead of time and someone had been talked to me, I probably would find those shoes ahead of time, and I would say, I will put them here in a safe zone. If I will need them, I'll use it. And if not, nothing wrong, I'll bring it back to the garage after the storm is over. So keep in mind that those little things are there and require, and I'm sure everyone that haven't experienced those extreme events, not thinking that it's even possible, but be aware that the more extreme changes on weather is happening, the more vulnerable we are, and we need absolutely to prepare ourselves. That include also, like, if you run out of power, you don't have heat. And now you ended up with fire if you have gas. And if you don't have fire and gas, or earthquake disaster is, like the aftershocking earthquake is happening, they will say to us, do not use gas. And so, what do you do? How you support yourself and how you prepare yourself to warm yourself? And you definitely want to have warm clothes and blankets. So, even air activated warmers, which I just bought a week ago. It's kind of like a nice package that when you opening it, it can keep you warm for 4 or 6 hours, depends on the product. But the bottom line is, if you need to invest. Don't play here, because it could be very crucial when you don't have heat, the temperature dropped too low, and you don't have anything to warm yourself up. Or if you need to evacuate and you don't have your snowshoes because you couldn't find them. So this is something that you want to keep in mind and think, how can you do that better? Another category that was very useful last year for us were the tools. I call it the tools. So, candles and matches. When was the last time you used the matches? So since last year, I have a pack of almost 12 matches packages, because I used that last year. Swear to God, I needed it because all the electrolytes ovens were, out of power. And so candles, you don't have light, you don't have TV, you don't have a laptop, you don't have your cellular. So what do you do? It was really romantic week. My husband and myself, we were lighting candles at 4 o'clock in the evening and fall asleep at 7 and walk up the following day. But we needed the candle, we needed the matches. Flashlights. Okay, so I had a flashlight, but I didn't have batteries for the flashlight, definitely not for 7 days. So do you have batteries for your flashlights, for any other device that you need and you think you want to have while in emergency case? and definitely charges for your phone. And luckily enough, there was only one house in this old neighborhood that they had electrolytes power for maybe an hour a day. So all the neighbors went into this house and we charge our phone to say to our kids and our family, we are okay, don't worry. Um, Another issue that I faced here with all the neighbors here were gas stove versus electrolyte stove. So absolutely all of those who have electrolyte stove could not use it, period. They really couldn't. And we were the only one in the neighborhood with gas stove. Luckily enough, we could serve others and share that, resource. But you want to keep that in mind that in different circumstances, gas cannot be used, and then gas burner and propane gas may be the solution that you want to prepare. So if you don't have it from your last camping trip, then go and buy. Invest that $50 and buy that propane gas uh, containers. So if you need, you have it. And another options that is really nice over here, like Tesla was using those generator, batteries to run one room. It is expensive, but if you do that, do that. And if not, just can you buy another solution like generator, big, huge batteries that are much cheaper. But again, if you need that type of service, can you use it? And especially I'm thinking always like if you have a person in the house that is sick, like a person that using dialysis, for example, how can you manage without this power? We need to think about that and prepare ourselves. Nice. Okay, do you have enough knife to get off and clear your uh, back or front yard? Swiss Army knife, shuffles if the snow go high. And then whistles. Whistles are really interesting, which I never thought about that. But when we are going, especially earthquakes, debris can build up and lock us, and roof can fall into us, and we can find ourselves trapped in between whatever. And if you have a whistle hanging up on you, you can whistle to the relief workers to find you. So I never thought about that, but this is something that it is something that is so simple and so cheap that you can buy for everyone if you're in your family a whistle, and if something come up, just put it on yourself. Need it, use it. No, put it back. But it's a really cheap solution that can be very helpful. And of course, ROPS of any kind in case you need that. And I can tell you that we saw here while in these 7 days trees that fell like flies. It was amazing. You just heard a crack and then boom, the tree was falling down to pieces. So it could happen and it could block your window, your door, your car. You can be trapped. So be aware of all these little things that can definitely help you to cross this challenge. Special items, which is another category that I would like to kind of like keep in mind for people. Medications, if you are taking any medications and you know that you're taking, always make sure that you have a better supply, and especially when they're life-threatening, like, immunosuppressive medication, that if you don't take it for 12 hours, you're in trouble. And if you don't take it and there is no emergency transportation to the next hospital, you are in trouble and you might face death. And I'm not here to scare anyone, but I'm here to bring and arise your attention and make sure that you have that kind of supply. And if you need to evacuate, you want to have in this pack bag some photocopies of your credit card and identification cards or any documents, because just rebuild all those documents afterward. it's a disaster by itself. So just make sure that you have that pack. And if you need to evacuate, you don't have to dig into your paperwork and documents and just have it. Cash and coins, it's also a good advice because, okay, you ran away and you don't have credit card. What do? There are angels outdoor there, and I'm sure some good angels will share their food, but for a very limited time. And we need to make sure that we have that money supply if we need that. And then if you have hearing aid, for example, make sure you have enough batteries because if you have to run and you don't hear well where to run, if a tree is coming down or a car coming down, you can find yourself with a dangerous position as well. So make sure you have that extra batteries for your hearing aid so you can supply the need. If you have an infant or a toddler and you need to make sure that you need formula or diapers or bottles or pacifiers, make sure you have it. Don't think only food. You have to think of other items that are necessary. And if you have an elderly person in the house that need a wheelchair, or some kind of different transportation and he or she's stuck, you want to think, how are you going to evacuate them and who is in what method and what avenue you want to go. Because in the end of the day, these what will make a big difference in those moments where you need to jump into a car or a truck to evacuate yourself and save your life. So I started with gluten-free, but it's overall information for everyone outdoor there. As a gluten-free people, food in any stressful times is crucial, and you want to make sure that you have the supply to meet the needed calories so you do not deteriorate other tissues in the body, and make sure that you are supplying the need even in emergency times. And unfortunately, disaster or natural disaster are happening. We just saw that today. And unfortunately, I experienced both of them, a fire and a winter storm in Texas last year. And I'm not so sure what will happen this year, but I know that this year, at least I'm better prepared. And I hope for everyone here not to experience that because it's not fun. But if you are, unfortunately, make sure you are preparing yourself and making sure that as a gluten-free person, you want to support yourself accordingly so you're not challenging your health even more. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome always to contact us. Be safe and happy winter if you want to call it. And just that's that. Happy holidays. Take care.